Welcome to the F3 podcast, where we discuss all things that pertain to faith, family, and finances. And remember, no subject is off limits. We are your hosts today. I am Dr. Lionel M. Blair Sr., and I'm sitting next to the glorious, the wonderful. She is the sainted mother herself. She is Saint Jasmine the First, my wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous wife, Dr. Jasmine Blair.
Welcome everybody to the F3 podcast.
Don't be
Shout out.
trying to look plain faced. It is
What you
normal.
talk about?
You know you wanted to smile when I gave you that grand
What
introduction.
I did smell.
You
It
see,
was it was a
you
little smirk.
like you trying to hold back.
Welcome everybody to the F3 podcast. Shout out to all of our longtime viewers and first time viewers. Listen, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hit the little notification bell in the corner so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. And remember, no subject is off limits because we will talk about what your pastor wants. So we've definitely got a really good topic today. And today we want to get into something that's a little more technical, but it's definitely worth the conversation because we've seen too many pastors and senior leaders get this one wrong. We're really going to dive in today personal convictions and what that means when you are the senior leader of a church or ministry or religious organization or any organization, really. Um, Even in a business,
Yeah,
personal convictions versus biblical convictions, and what that means and how you have to handle that responsibility. I think sometimes people forget, like, just because you the senior pastor don't mean like the church. People forget the church is a fictitious person. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If it's going over your head, then it's ain't for you. The senior leadership understands what I'm saying. The church is as an organization, as an entity, is a fictitious person. And so while leading, though you are the senior leader, though there's a level of responsibility there, it's important for you to recognize that you are not the church, like the organization, the entity, the fictitious person. The church as an entity is a separate, for legal purposes now, the church is a separate person from you. So, with that being said, you got to make sure that you are careful to differentiate between your convictions and the conviction of the church
yeah,
as a fictitious person.
yeah.
And some of the things I've seen over the years have been real, real crazy, especially over the last several months. I think there are too many, and again, this is a what I call a green problem because we are in a transition still. We have a lot of seasoned leaders getting out of ministry, and a lot of young leaders are stepping up, or successors are taking over, or people who are not as well versed in ministry, so they are still learning and growing. So it's a green issue because as they mature, they will learn, best practices and lessons learned and what to do and what not to do. But you have to be careful with mixing your personal views and personal convictions with the views of the church or ministry as an entity,
Yeah,
because them two things ain't the same.
yeah,
That's why you have statement of faith and statement of beliefs. That's why you have written doctrine, because those are the beliefs and the convictions of the organization.
right.
And I think we mean well sometimes when we do things like this, trying to draw people doing different things, but you cannot do that.
Right.
You cannot do that. And I think this is why we see some of the stupid stuff we see in the pulpit sometimes.
Yeah,
There's been, like, case in point, over the last calendar year, there's been a lot of pastors who have been preaching a message. They might have said some kind of cuss word or expletive in the pulpit, and then they came back later. I apologize. That's just me. That's how I am. You okay? But you can't do that in the pulpit. You may not think there's something wrong with that at home or wherever else, but you cannot. You doing that in the pulpit, that sends the message to the entire world that, hey, we as a church, as an organization, as an entity, feel that this is okay. You can't do that. So while they've gone back and issued apologies later on, the reality is it should have never been said there.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? And I think sometimes in the moment, with emotionalism, there's a rush, because some of that rush ain't the anointing. It's just your emotions, you in the moment, and you say and do things for effect. That you shouldn't be mixing with. You might not see nothing wrong with it, but even pastors who openly say, well, I don't feel nothing wrong with what they said, but where they said it at. Come on now. So now we got to dive into many other different things because there's been a lot of controversial things over the past year. The other thing, you had the pastor that was doing the whole cigar thing, and he was doing the meet up with the men and trying to minister to the men. And of course, there were people on both sides. Some people said, oh, this is creative evangelism.
Mhm.
Other people said, well, I don't feel like as a pastor, he should be doing that. Again, we can't control the man's personal convictions,
Right.
but my issue is you can't have a church name on the flyer. Like this shouldn't be done as a church event. And there was another pastor that did this as a church event. So it was more than one person. And I won't mention names, but again, that should not be done as a church event. Now, if you as the pastor, you've got your own business or your own entity that wants to, that is sponsoring the event, or you say, hey, I've paid for the lounge or whatever I want. You do that on your own. You see what I'm saying? Don't drag the church into that. Because again, the church is a whole organization. Most of these people, when God told them, okay, this is your church home, this is where you're going to be ministering, this is where you're going to be healed, they didn't sign up for all of that.
Right.
And hear me what I'm saying. Yes, I understand there's a role about being, a member, being laity, and being the faithful. But you cannot take your own convictions or a cause you want to take up and then slap the church name on it and expect everybody to be okay with it.
Right.
You just cannot do that.
You cannot make everybody in your church comply with that or act like they're
because that's
following.
not biblical. Those are your personal convictions.
Right.
We'll take it a step further. You even have pastors coming out, supporting like Black Lives Matters and different activist movements. Again, I'm not against you supporting things that you are convicted about. Right. But when you slap it, oh, we finna do this as a church because you feel strongly about it, that is where the issue comes up. When all the things happened with Black Lives Matter and the passing of George Floyd and that whole controversy, there was a well-known pastor, and she actually took it upon herself to hire a social activist like on staff at the church. This was a newly created salaried position in the church as I don't want to misquote it, but it's okay because their name not out here. But I believe they were a spiritual advisor and social activist on staff paid at the church. I'll tell you when we get off of here.
I didn't hear about that. Wow.
But yes, this was an on staff, and this was somebody who was already known secularly for doing like social activism and stuff. You hire. Why do you need a social justice advisor or advocate on staff at the church? They could take their time and volunteer at their local Black Lives Matter or their local human rights group. They could do that on their own time. You see what I'm saying? To volunteer. But why are we wasting church resources to hire social activists because you feel so strongly? And again, every life is precious. It's unfortunate when anybody passes away. So this is not to take away from the man's life, regardless of the kind of person he was. This person left behind loved ones and children who will now grow up without a father or brother or uncle or whoever. We're not being insensitive to that. See, some of y'all, you're hung up on that. Well, he was alive, and you're missing the point. Why are church resources? People are giving to the expansion of the ministry, the expansion of the work of God, to support, whatever building fund or whatever salaries that are there in that ministry. And you and whoever else was on the board chooses to allocate those funds to hiring a social justice advocate for the ministry. Now, where this person's church is not even like it's like in an inner city with a lot of minorities where that would actually make sense. They're somewhere where ain't nobody worried about that.
Right.
So why do that? You feel strongly about it, but do you need to drag the whole church as an organization? And that's how some of these people, though they're good preachers, though they're good teachers, they might have degrees, they may be able to rightly divide the word. You see what I'm saying? And really get into the hidden and written revelation. Some stuff is just dumb. There's no nice way to put it. That is stupid to allocate the resources to hiring a social justice advocate because of how you personally feel. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It does not make any sense whatsoever. So I'm gonna pass it to you with this question. Why is it that senior leaders sometimes forget and they tend to blur their personal convictions with the biblical convictions that should be in the doctrine of the church? Why do they do that?
Because they have a poor they probably have a poor church life balance,
Mm, that's
except when it comes to their personal sins.
right.
Okay, okay, they didn't know how to separate the church and their
Real
life.
good, right? Real
Okay,
good.
but a lot of them don't have a proper church life balance, so they don't know how to not fuel their preachings with their personal
Hmm.
convictions about stuff. Like the whole Black Lives Matter thing. There's a popular pastor, I ain't gonna say his name, but he's
Hmm.
real big on social activism. Anything black, he's for. Anything that's white, he's against.
Hmm.
And which I think is just as wicked.
Yeah.
I think I've heard somebody, think it was Candace. Oh, she called it reverse racism.
Hmm.
Which is still just as wrong.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go by Bible, if we're gonna go by Bible and Scripture in the eyes of God, okay,
Hmm.
any form of racism, even if it's retaliated racism, is still wrong.
Right.
Now, injustice, the Bible teaches us, is an abomination, right? Injustice. So to stand against injustice, okay, whether it's personal or the pulpit, is biblical. However, your personal details of that conviction, you understand what I'm saying? That ain't for you to spew across the pulpit.
No.
Okay? If it's just like people fighting over this whole Russia Ukraine thing,
Hmm.
and people talking about, well, those not the real Jews anyway. So
That's not something that you bring to church.
yeah, those are the real Jews anyway, and the
And
land
so
belongs to
we
Palestine
we
anyway. But
wasting
people
some,
are dying.
and we're wasting Sunday service time, or Saturday or Tuesday, whenever you have service time, the time that we should be edifying the people. And again, I'm not saying don't have conversations. We're not dumb. We live in the world. Obviously, we cannot just live under a rock and pretend that we don't know what's going on. But you're wasting precious time. You're supposed to be ministering to people's souls, spewing out your own convictions,
Yeah,
spewing out your own beliefs. And that's just crazy.
and now some of these people, man, they just preach on blackness all the time. You might as well rename your church Black Lives Matter Church at this point. To change the church emblem with you got a cross with a fist. What is this? You see what I'm saying? What is this? This is something that you know and then we don't have God's heart on it. We don't have a balanced view of it. We don't have the heart of God on it.
Right.
We just going by our ancestors, not ours personally, but our ancestors'
That we
poor
don't know.
experiences. You see what I'm saying? And we are afforded better opportunities today than they ever were. The best way to really show them wrong is to succeed.
Hmm.
But see, don't bring all that junk in the pulpit, because we're
No.
supposed to be bringing people closer to Christ first and foremost. Okay? Now, some things, if you're really passionate about, let's say, social activism, okay, create a brand outside of the church.
Right.
So that way you can talk all that stuff all you want, because you should not force everyone in your congregation
Hmm.
to listen to that, because everybody may not believe the same thing that you do about every subject, right?
And then
Well,
if they get up and walk out of church, you're gonna be mad.
they can go somewhere else. Well, then you may have lost the sheep that God may have assigned to you, because you don't know how to compartmentalize certain things.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I saw something on social media today. There's a pastor, and what she's doing is, and some of y'all may not agree with this, but whatever. She's doing a wine and word Wednesdays, right?
Hmm.
But one of the things she's made emphatically clear, she's not doing it at her church. And this is her personal brand,
Hmm.
right? This is her personal brand. This is something that she's doing, even though it got wine and word.
It's
She ain't
not a
promote.
church event.
It's
The
not a
church
church
name
event.
ain't on the flyer. The church ain't
Yeah,
paying for it. The church resources ain't going to it.
this don't got nothing to do with the church. This is everything she got to do with her and her little panel of guests that she gonna have. All right. So that's actually smart because that way can't nobody bring any kind of see some of y'all gonna mess around and people gonna find a way to bring legal accusations against you because you don't know how to compartmentalize certain things. Right? There's things that I can say up here that I never say on the pulpit.
Right.
You'll never hear me say certain things on the pulpit that I say up here.
Right.
I'm in a whole different zone. It's a whole different anointing.
Well, I don't think that's what. Don't watch it. This is a separate platform.
Yeah, this is borderline.
For those of y'all OGs, we tell y'all this ain't church. This ain't a pulpit. This is why no subject is off limits.
Well, you shouldn't say that because young men and women are watching you.
Well, no subject. You're warned every episode. No subject is off limits.
No subject, baby. I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about on my platform. Okay, so you'll get the more wholesome. Well, I'm wholesome either way, but you'll get the more ecclesiastical me in our public services. Okay, you gonna get the raw me up here. Okay, you gonna get the raw me up here because this is not my ministry platform. This ain't I Cam Global. This is the F3 podcast. Yeah, and we discuss faith, family, and finances. Okay, but no subject is off limits.
Right.
So I say whatever the hell I want to say up here. Okay, and that same verbiage that I just used, I will not use across the pulpit. But you got some pastors that can't separate the two. Does it mean I'm living a double life? No, I just know how to compartmentalize things because everybody cannot handle certain things. And if you are on the ministry side of things watching this and you're offended, it's your fault.
We told you
because I warned you.
No,
I don't know if I want to follow you because I don't think you're a man of God. Well, ask my wife, am I a man of God? Okay, because she ain't gonna lie for nobody, not even me. Ask her if I'm living a double life. Anyway, but the point is, don't turn your church. Don't bring all your personal convictions into the church. If you want to do certain activism, I've heard pastors say, I want to do LGBTQ activism, which I don't agree with.
But if you're going to do it, it shouldn't be through the church.
It
shouldn't be a church-supported thing.
No.
You need to support that.
Leave your members out of it. Don't even talk about it on the pulpit. Talk about it on your secular platform apart from that. If you want to if you want to be an LGBTQ activist as a pastor,
do it on your
holler
own
about
time.
You want to show love and stuff like that. Listen, don't do that on your own platform. Okay, and if you still view that
church volunteer hours, their resources, their bullhorn, nothing. You do it.
If you still view that as ministry, then create a separate entity to where you could do that kind of ministry.
Yeah.
But don't attach that to your church. It's just not smart.
No, it's not.
It's just not smart. And people are people gonna talk anyway? Yes, but at least people can accuse you of blending your ministry into all that.
That's it. That's it right there.
So yeah, man. Don't be smart, man.
You got to get better with this.
Listen. There are things that I have personal convictions about and I'm passionate about, but I talk about on my platform. I'm not going to necessarily bring it to the pulpit like that. I'm not going to do it. Now, if it becomes a doctrinal issue I have to address, that's one thing. But sometimes I just go on rants and I'm passionate about stuff. I'm not going to bring that in the pulpit.
Right.
I'm just not going to do it. Why? Because that's not what the people need to hear. See, we think that we know what the people need to hear because it convicts us. That may be what you need to know, not what they need to hear. Maybe that's what you need to do, not what they need to know. Okay, I say what I said. So for all y'all, be smart. Pastors. All right, because see, some of y'all gonna lose people unnecessarily. And Jesus said, "What? Father, I thank you that I've lost none that you've given me." Are you losing people that God gave you?
Uh-oh.
Not because of them, but because of you.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So listen, any closing remarks you got?
Don't be a fool.
Yeah.
Don't be a fool. Um, compartmentalize certain things. Don't
Mm-hmm.
turn your church into your own personal conviction because it's God's church, not yours.
Exactly. And say that again.
It's God's church, not yours.
You might be the senior leader, but you the senior servant. At the end of the day, everything that you are doing in that ministry is God's.
It's yours in stewardship, but not yours in ownership.
Yes, that's good.
So you cannot bring your stuff in the church and think that everything's supposed to conform to you.
Can't do
And
it.
now you can't go 1 month without preaching a black message. You can't go 1 month without preaching a pro LGBTQ message, which that is questionable. You cannot go 1 month without preaching something that you are just extremely convicted by. Listen, find some time outside of the church to do that stuff. But see, they be trying to get the church to staff that other stuff.
That's it. And that's the
You're
part
wrong.
That's the integrity piece of it.
You're wrong.
And if you somebody watching this and you've made the mistake of doing this in the past, just don't do it no more.
Don't do it no
Just
more.
next year. Well, we did this last year, but we're not going to do this no more. Open you a LLC, get you a community development corporation, some other entity to carry out these convictions and personal things that you want to accomplish in the community, and lead the church out of it. Get your own volunteers.
I've seen pastors, like one of my old leaders, go back into their old career and bring the people that we got saved.
Lord have mercy.
She went back to singing the blues, and gonna bring people that we got saved and delivered back into the same environments that we got them free from.
And now a lot of them are back in bondage.
Oh yeah. Now, a lot of them back alcoholics. They back in the world. They back smoking,
Christ.
drinking, cussing. Some of them, some people out and got saved and brought to the church. Now they in jail. All kinds of stuff. All because you have a personal conviction about your money, and the way that you're supposed to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you didn't know how to separate the two.
Right.
Yes,
indeed. Well, listen, again, tell us down in the comments what you think. We definitely want to hear from you. Be sure to follow us over on IG. And until next time on the F3 podcast. Goodbye.